Alright, we're picking this up here, getting rid of the player, in the second of a video doing problem 8-5, and we're pretty much almost done. What we've done is we've projected the corners of the box up and around, but we now need to project all the other lines, at least to get the profile. So you don't get too confused. What you can do sometimes is just project some lines through, and so I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go offset T for through, take that X line through the intersection of that, and then this is the time where you can definitely want to establish what is your kind of drafting upon drafting lines, or your object lines, and you can draft lines on top of lines, which generally is a rule that we keep to not do, but it starts to change very quickly as you get organizing layers. You do have layers, lines on top of lines. So I'm going to go a line from the intersection there, right click or line or L from the intersection. Remember that thing is sitting in a light box to the intersection there. And in reality, this one on the back side when we go across is also a line from the intersection here to the intersection. And you don't necessarily want to do all the lines at once. And you can do them and erase them and put them back. Eventually they all should be there for guidelines, but you've got that kind of process going on at this point. And then of course you had this line projecting through, so offset T for through, offset, ooh, there's text, offset T for through, that one there, through the intersection of that. Remember, we can trim it off. Left click, spacebar, C for copy, rotate 90 degrees. That's what the light is doing. And now you can take that line here from the intersection of that to the intersection and start following around and through what is going on with your work. So this is then going down to, right down to there and across. So I'm going to go ahead and do a line here from the intersection. And there is no one particular way to do this, but you will start to see, hopefully, when I twist this into a little bit of different views, that these lines will all have these kind of points where they line up, these projection lines. It will be, as long as something can be seen, offset through what point? Through the intersections. As long as it can be seen, these light lines will kind of go through and be seeable. So if you noticed here, there was another line. This line right here goes through. So I'm going to offset T for through, shift right click the intersection here. Again, do this trimming and rotating a few times. You can do it another way, but understand you're doing a reverse pool shot. 90, C for copy, you're going to grab, left click, spacebar, C for copy, rotate 90 degrees. And this, in fact, as it went across, this line was here, but there was also a line from the intersection there to the intersection there. And now this line also comes across, and so you have a line here from the intersection, and I'm typing intersection so you can see you can do that as well. Intersection to the intersection, and then up to the intersection. And now you see I'm not paying a lot of attention to direction of lines, because in many ways the vectors are the light, but I am kind of shining the light in the right direction because those in fact are what would be called vectors. Endpoint to the intersection there. At this point you can see all the lines that you would see projected that are light, that are seeable, and then what you are left with finally is offset T for through, through the quadrant again, and through the quadrant, and same thing here. In this case you have to extend, screw that, and you're going to take this one here, left click spacebar, C for copy, 90 degrees, and this one here you're going to trim it, undo, trim. You're trimming out these construction lines or light projection lines. A better word would actually be projection lines. Left click spacebar, C for copy, 90 degrees. And now you finally have the fact that those two lines, and if you see they will always line up, should be now those hidden lines, and they don't go as far as you otherwise would think. So you kind of, in your brain, you kind of switch between one layer and the other. Probably better to actually think about it and do it. Intersection there to the intersection there, and then offset T for through the intersection there, and voila, you're kind of done with that piece, except for then zoom 0.2x, except for then this concept of starting to label like this center line. So we probably should take that one through, offset T for through the center, extend, screw that, left click, spacebar, C for copy, 90, and then you're left with your final lines, which would probably be this concept of a center line going through, which you can take a little bit longer usually. If you remember, we have that layer as well, pre-established center line, and we're going to take a line, and I'll just do it from outside, from the intersection there. And then a great snap is the near snap. That near snap takes you that center line. Same thing here. This time you could offset it T for through. That center line goes through the intersection of that one. Right, there's a center line there. And in this case, I don't think that that would actually look so great unless you kind of showed it this way. Same thing here. So your eye doesn't get confused. And now you're just left with, I would say at this point is when you really learn to trim this thing off. So I would do a box. You can cheat it sometimes. I'd take a box out here, and then I will show you now a new way to do trims. Trim. Select the box this time, and now use F for fence, and just run a fence. Close your fence, and it closes all that off, and it cuts off all those lines so they're not infinite. You're now left with this basics of layer management, and then finally I'm going to have you go ahead and do some blocking on this one as well. Alright, so you've got all this. So you don't really need those construction lines, so what you're going to do at some point is do layer manager. Remember, layer manager is this here, and you can say new, and this would be all underscore on. Hit OK. Close, and then you can start using the tools like the layer freeze tool and turn that one off, and then have something that's going to look like something you're going to plot with. And then you could do, once again, layer manager, new, no, underscore, con, underscore, lines. All kinds of different ways things you can do. You get used to all this management, and you're kind of set to go there. We've still got another few minutes, and so I'm going to now talk about blocking this and why you might want to do these blocks. But in reality, you now just have to go over here. Dimensioning needs to go on, and we will cover that still. But if you go into here, you remember that view. I will start making some views. You've actually got 1, 2, 3 views, and so it would make a lot of sense to make the individual views. But you can also just go over here, double click inside Zoom Extents, and then check your scale to something normal. 1 to 2 probably doesn't work. So now you go back to 1 to 1. Right? That doesn't work. So now you might go to 1 to 4 or 1 to 3. You're back to that kind of sense of laying out dimensioning. It should all be DWG props. You could go ahead and change the name. The title would be multi-view. The subject would be AutoCAD. And the author would be St. Nick. Hit OK. Remember, you've got to go back and forth between these things. Everything should generally plot out with the one caveat. Whenever you make layers, you have to make sure that the layers that you made, right, were defined on a correct type of plot style. It looks like they are. At this point, you're ready to plot. So you go ahead and hit plot many different ways. But if you do it from here, you would plot from a view. And so now let's definitely make sure we set a view minus V for view. This is going to be what I'm going to call for now plot view or overall underscore view, window, and this, you notice I'm just making arbitrary, window overall underscore view. This I'm going to actually just make that, go across, and we've got it. What I want to do now to finish this out is then now make 3 blocks of this. So I have not saved. I should have done that originally. Save as. We'll stick this out for this now out on the K transfer, and I put this out as an example. Multi-view. I'm going to always save these things as 04 because you might want to transfer them. Now I've got a multi-view. I'm going to go now and make 3 blocks after I've saved it. Minus B for block. Enter block name. Let's call this one top view block. Probably better to say block underscore top view. Insertion base point. I'm going to do it from a logical spot. Grab my objects. I can now say oops, great command, it brings it back. Make another one, minus B for block. Block underscore front view. Insertion base point, the intersection here. Select my objects. Oops. Finally, the last one, minus B, block, underview side. I guess this would be right side. Insertion base point, the intersection of that. Grab my things. Oops. You can double check that your blocks are around by saying I for insert, XREF for other things. I for, there's one block, I, right side there, and then I, the other bit, which of course is the top view. Now, I've lined them up non-arbitrary, or kind of arbitrarily. Later on, you're going to see those, in fact, are not. You want to remember that those are not the objects. They are the objects' corners projected upon a light box. That becomes huge when you start dealing things with 100010000100001 and start rotating things about axes and get to the point where it ain't that bad, and in all reality, it does make the shift from 2D to 3D back to 2D exactly what Professor Lewin talks about, what you talk about when you put on glasses, dealing with light and turns of light and angles of light and shifts of light. So, all right, that's 2 of those. That's a lot of information. That's just not just multi-view, but it's a good summary. End drawing like this doesn't include many fillets, but besides that, it includes everything. Pretty much you want or need to know, with the last thing being dimensions, and that is in fact why you have left off these spaces. That's why you leave a couple of inches or a couple of units in that. Thanks for listening.